Welcome to a very special episode of Ask a CFO, a forum where we ask one question and get three answers from experienced CFOs. Today's question is, how was the Florida CFO Group founded? Let's hear from the three founding members on what brought them together to form the Florida CFO Group. Betsy, would you like to start?
I'd be glad to, Phil. Thanks for asking. Our story goes back to 2010 when, prior to when we formed the group, I was an independent consulting CFO, and I had known Dan. We sort of traveled in the same circles with ACG and some FEI, some other groups. I learned very quickly that when you're an independent, that you need to form a network. And at that point in time, I did not do interim work. I only did fractional work, and Dan did interim work. So when I got referrals for interim work, I would send them Dan's way, because that way your referral source stayed live. A couple of years after I met Dan, I followed Jay on a client. There was a couple of year gap, but I followed him and I'm looking at this work. And usually when I followed a prior CFO, it wasn't really high quality work. A lot of times it would be controller work. And I'm looking at this work going, God, this is great work. And I asked Dan, do you know this guy, Jay? And he's like, yeah, I know him. He's one of my partners. And I'm like, well, I'd really like to meet him. So then at the point in time where Dan and Jay's previous organization went through a major change and they were looking for a change, and Dan approached me, would I be interested in working with them? It was a non-question. I was absolutely interested in working with them. So what we did is that first meeting of the three of us, we met at a midpoint. I think I had to drive 30 minutes each way. I think Dan had to drive 30 minutes each way. And it was pretty close to wherever Jay was working at a client that day. But we all drove to a Chili's in Odessa, and the three of us came up with the concept of the Florida CFO Group. Do you remember it that way, Jay?
Betsy, how could I forget? I was also eager for that meeting. I was doing fractional CFO work for the same agency as Dan. That agency was morphing into a consulting group that made money by requiring their clients to use their controllers and accounting personnel. I knew I could provide more value for my clients outside the group, but I also knew it was important to have a support group to lean on. A CFO's knowledge is a powerful asset, and being part of a group of CFOs gives us access to lots of knowledge, and that helps us create value for our clients. And growing from a group of 3 CFOs to a group of 18 over the past 10 plus years has made all of us stronger. Betsy, I am really glad you and Dan came to my neighborhood Chili's for that meeting. Dan, you had about a 30-minute ride to get to the meeting, didn't you?
That's right, Jay. I had to make that drive as well. You had the short drive, but it was well worth it. By the time we were out of there, we'd come up with a different business model, much different than the one, Jay, you and I came from. And we'd established 2 of the core principles that we had started with us. 1, we were only going to be qualified CFOs. 2, we were not going to have the huge corporate overhead that we have been dealing with that had really driven us to the point where we wanted to start the Florida CFO Group. And that's really, it's a win-win on the overhead, because we as the CFO partners were taking out of our pocket sometimes, and the client was paying a much higher overhead for no benefit. So by us saying that we're not going to have this high corporate overhead, we're able to attract and retain very high quality CFO partners. And the other thing that came out of that was we were saying that we're only going to be CFOs. And when we went to a client and said, this is what we are, this is all we are. We're not controllers, we're not IT guys, we're not whatever. We were able to really build value for our clients and attract a lot of very good people and maintain them. And they're CFO partners for us. So that drive was very, very well worth it. And I think we've got a great thing that we've grown since 2010.
Well, thank you, Dan, Jay, and Betsy, for sharing your founder story with us. By the way, which one of you picked up the check?
I don't remember.
It was Jay. We always got short arms when the check came. Jay always got stuck besides he had the short drive.
Yeah, I picked up the bill and I would gladly do it again.